Hi, everyone. My name is Darren Pustum. I'm a product manager here at Esri in Redlands, and I'm happy to be joining today for a fun session on ArcGIS Earth. David?
I'm David Attaway, and I'm a solution engineer based out of the DC office. So I look forward to taking on this journey that we'll be doing this morning or this afternoon now.
Great, thanks, David. So let's get started, huh? So ArcGIS Earth is truly an interactive 3D experience for our users to help in their planning, visualization, and evaluation of events happening around the globe. In that sense, Earth provides situational awareness for an operating environment both on your desktop and mobile devices for more improved decision making. And as you'll see later, users can ingest data from multiple sources and in many different formats, including securely behind a firewall or even disconnected in the field. ArcGIS Earth is built on our ArcGIS Runtime SDK for .NET, and it pretty much shares the same requirements for deployment as other apps built with Runtime SDK. And Earth is free. Coming up shortly, you'll see how easy this tool is to quickly fuse, manipulate, and collaborate with 3D data for your research, for planning, your graphic presentations, and supporting time-sensitive briefings. Now, I wanted to share a little bit about Earth's usage. For some of you, Earth's still relatively new, but in fact, usage has been steadily mounting since 2016. We have over 5,500 organizations in 137 countries already using ArcGIS Earth. Our core user group being the industry specialists, whether that be an all-source analyst, a planner, an engineer, educator, or even a student, and whether they're in the office or in the field. Ultimately, there's a bigger group of users that Earth serves versus the GIS professional or the content creator. Now, I won't be a real product manager if I didn't address some of the key requirements we've seen from like the national government community per se. And these are by no means all of them. So for things like operating on multiple secure networks behind a firewall, consuming KMLs from desperate legacy systems that spit out these files, and ways to handle KML errors. Now, this is by no means an easy task for Esri. As you know, we're not a KML shop, and Google has its own way of handling errors versus how the KML spec runs. We had requirements for drawing, editing, and saving, basically manipulating KML, sharing that KML, and using these in time-sensitive briefings. So it has to be really quick to be able to edit that KML and share it off, as well as creating disconnected content for offline use. And we've also had requests to configure and customize the entire globe. And even using analysis tools like 3D Measure, line of sight, some of which you'll see today. So when we built ArcGIS Earth, we were going for something very simple, a simple way to visualize, to edit, and to share data on the globe. So the team created a really great onboarding experience at startup that provides quick tips on each of the key features of Earth to quickly ramp up that time. And of course, many organizations use different terminologies, so we wanted to make that experience customizable so I could come in here and edit and create the content that I need to reflect how my organization speak. ArcGIS Earth is easy to install, and Earth supports secure and configurable deployments behind the firewall. So for on-premises, we even have a Esri hosted or a mix of both, which we call a hybrid version, so I can access online and enterprise at the same time and share content to the public while keeping my content secure. Earth users can then securely access ArcGIS Online and Enterprise. And if Earth is connected to point to a PKI-enabled portal, users will be able to be automatically signed in. And David, maybe you can talk a little bit more about your experience on Nipper, Sipper, and JWix.
Definitely. So what we found is that the ability to kind of connect in, it will read your PKIs. And so we found it to be a very seamless experience to where the user can literally point to their PKIs and have access. So if you have any additional questions related to that, feel free to ask them in the chat and I can address those later on as well.
Great, thanks, David. And also to aid administrators in the install process, we've created a configuration file that will allow you to specify criteria ahead of time for your users. So admins can do these preset application settings in an XML file. So I could specify things like my portal, my PKI servers, navigation units, all my startup data, like my setup layers, my base maps, and my terrain data. And features created for folks specifically behind the firewall, like error logging, providing an alternate icon path for your legacy KML files, optionally blocking the default connection to ArcGIS Online, the ability to skip your URL at startup, and configure the access location for your dictionary files and through hyperlinks, and many, many more. So during installation, all you have to do is to select this configuration file and import that file into ArcGIS Earth. I'd like to share also that we're going to make this file more centralized and accessible via portal so that when a user logs in, they can just select that file to configure Earth. And they're very simple installation instructions for ArcGIS Earth. You could get them on the Get Started document page. And if this help is also available in PDF in the Earth's directory, and we are working to bring more of this content to you outside of what we provide on the open internet. And of course, users can also personalize their own environment settings in ArcGIS Earth. It is truly an immersive 3D experience, as David will show you shortly. When we built Earth, we wanted something that would be familiar, something that could handle not only KML and other file-based workflows, but that would work on your secure networks. We wanted an app that you can share with the rest of the organization so that they too can leverage the gobs and gobs of data stored in ArcGIS that have been amassed over the years as your system of record. So as I mentioned, Earth not only supports these file-based workflows, but it also enhances the user experience via cloud-based GIS through ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. And just to sum up, before I pass it to David, in Earth, not just KML is content, everything is content. So you can access multiple sources through ArcGIS Online and Portal, locally on your hard drive or from a file server or via URL, and in many different formats, from shape files, as you can see here, or REST services, imagery, base maps, 3D models, all of which you will see when David does his demo. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to David to jump right into his demo.
Thanks, Darren. So thank you again for joining us today. With many of you working from home, we wanted to tailor this demonstration to showcase the power of ArcGIS Earth while taking you to the movies. So grab some popcorn and let's dive into today's demonstration while I'll showcase some of the key features and functionality you can expect to see from the free ArcGIS Earth 1.10.1. Let's take a stroll back to 1993 when the hit movie of that year was Jurassic Park. And it brought in over $1 billion. So here I can easily drag and drop a KMZ of the key locations where filming occurred. Looking at this, I noticed that there would be more appropriate to change the icon of this data. So I can easily come into this KMZ, look at the icons, and put Jurassic Park logo here as that key point. Looking at this KMZ, I also noticed that, hey, we want to kind of zoom into those particular areas of interest. So because I'm working in ArcGIS Earth, I can pull in some 3D models, whether DAE, FBX, or OBJ files. I can have the gate that's linked directly into Jurassic Park. And we can easily navigate and move around this location. Let's take a jump over to the Velociraptor pen. Looking at this KML, I noticed that it's kind of missing some key information. So I can easily open up this KML, look at the properties of this, and identify what needs to be added. I can pull in an image, save this in my pop-up, and now if I want to, I can directly export out this KMZ for someone else to use with their models. So clicking on this, we now have an image that gives us better context for what's going on with this key location. Now let's jump over to the T-Rex pad. Here we can zoom into the location of where they did the filming for the T-Rex. What's important to note is that although that we can have these 3D features of the fences and other key information, I can easily look to a folder and pull in some additional data for context. So I can pull in a Jeep, and more importantly, the T-Rexes. So here we have our Jeep, our T-Rexes, and all of this can be navigated and maneuvered. This is just one of the key ways in which ArcGIS Earth can help us with analyzing and allowing us to go to the movies. So now let's take a jump on our short list to look at the events that transpired in 2010 and led to the 2016 portrayal of the Deepwater Horizon. The first thing I want you to notice is that although I have this KML with this key data and information, I can also connect directly to my portal. I can pull up my portal and search Deepwater Horizon. I get all of this wonderful data and information that I can pull in. This gives me better context for key locations, key information, and now I have all of this data and information in one clear, concise place because I'm pulling it from my portal. One thing to note as well is that I can also pull up that same KMZ, and inside of this KMZ, there's some additional information. So I have this satellite imagery taken over the Deepwater Horizon. By opening up this model, I can look at those locations. I can look at the imagery that actually occurred in that particular area of interest. But because we're working in a 3D environment, I can easily come over here and drag the platform that we use for the Deepwater Horizon. This can take us into this key location, and now I can use some of the additional tools that I have available. One of these tools is the ability to do 3D measure. So I can simply click on this location up here and do my measure to see that, hey, this platform is about 98 meters high. Next on our list, we're going to jump to 1997 and some of the events that transpired with the RMS Titanic. So here I have my key locations related to the RMS Titanic. If I want to look and see what it looked like way back in 1912, I can easily come in here and see a quick little model of this location. I can also click on any of these events and this information to kind of give me additional context. So I'm looking at this model. One thing I want to note is because we're working with 3D, I want to see what this actually could look like. So thankfully, I've come in here and been able to pull this very detailed model of what the RMS Titanic would look like. Let's just take a quick look at this. So here we have a very detailed 4-part model for what the Titanic would look like. I can easily adjust this to see what it would look like and take a perspective of looking at what they would see on the ship. Now, I'm not king of the world, but I have to say that this is pretty amazing. And one thing I'd like to show you as well is that because I'm connected to my portal, I can pull in some additional data as well. So if we wanted to know what the Titanic routes were, I can easily pull up what that route was right here and bring it into my map. The final thing I'll show you related to the Titanic is that I can easily drag in what the Titanic would look like as it wrecked. So looking at the perspective of what it is today, we can kind of zoom into this particular location. I can see what the Titanic would look like today. But one thing I want to point as a feeder for the next release of ArcGIS Earth is that at ArcGIS Earth 1.11, the plan is to actually make it to where users can connect to these different data sources and look at them not only above ground, but below ground. So here we are taking just a quick look at what that would look like. So let's take a jump now to 2001 for the classic events that happened in Black Hawk Down. I can easily search my portal for Mogadishu. And this is going to zoom me into that key location. So now that I'm in Mogadishu, I just want to show you some of the newer features that are available with 1.10. Now, not only can I search my portal and pull in some key information, but I can also look at my portal to help me with KML editing if something goes wrong. So here I'm going to drag this key point of interest to the map. You'll notice that I get an error message down here that says, hey, there's something wrong with my KML. So I can easily pull up a KML text editor to look at position 3 or line 4, position 4. Noticing that, hey, I'm missing actually the documents folder. So I can easily click on this, save it, and now if I bring that file directly back in again, voila, everything works. So now I have my key points of interest related to the events that transpired with Black Hawk Down. One other thing I want to point out is that as we're kind of working with our data and information, it's really important to know that, hey, we're working with data that we can pull in our KMLs, we're connecting to ArcGIS Online and portal services, and we're also working with flat files. But thanks to our business partners, such as Bricon, we can look at these events not only in 2D, but 3D. So here, we're going to connect to this data set and not only look at our events in 2D, but also in 3D. So as this helicopter flies, I'll show you here in just a second, we're going to dynamically use Bricon's 3D surface model to view what is visible for the Black Hawk and easily take advantage of some of the key features and information that we can pull from this. So here we're going to adjust the speed that helicopter travels at. We can look at the horizontal angle that they can look at and also the distance that they can look at. So as we start this helicopter taking off, we can visibly see what was visible from each one of those locations, where it was traveling, but also we can click off of this. We can continue to look at the heading, what it was looking at, the angle that it was collecting at, and then also the key features of where it was actually focusing. Simply pausing this, I can zoom back into that key location. And what this can provide is not only can we look at the key elements and information, but on the fly, we can dynamically calculate the view shed of what was being visible and not visible to that helicopter. So hopefully you're enjoying this matinee around ArcGIS Earth and learning some of the new features that are available today. So let me pass it back to Darren for a minute so he can show you some of the disconnected and mobile options with ArcGIS Earth.
Thanks, David. That's a great demo, huh? In terms of disconnected workflows, we added the mobile scene package, and we're planning to bring on additional functionality to make it easier to author and consume mobile scene packages across the platform. These files are created in ArcGIS Pro and can be shared across the organization. You can also try to download Earth on your phones for your iOS or Android and access data from ArcGIS Online or Enterprise just like you would in the desktop version. You can share data among devices with AirDrop. You could add data from browsers or email attachments or instant messaging, identify features, collect, edit, and share placemarks, create and share a tour with the geotagged photos, and lots more. And you can even use interactive analysis tools, like in this example, where I can do line of sight by simply clicking on the screen and dragging across the different scene. I can even add a view shed and be able to do that as well. We're also making collaboration easier among users to add data from ArcGIS Earth with desktop by using a QR code. Now, in this example, I'm going to select a scene from on my desktop and send it straight to my mobile device by simply scanning the QR code. Now I can do this with ArcGIS services, portal items, and web scenes. Now I'm going to pass it back over to David to give us a demo of Operation Overlord.
Thanks, Darren. So finally, in this movie tour, we're going to jump back to 1998 with this 5-time Oscar-winning movie, which recreates some of the events that happened on June 6, 1944. There are many events that happened that day, from the beach landings to the airborne assaults, but the ones that stand out most were those that happened at Omaha Beach. And it wasn't because it was the least successful landing, but rather the movie Saving Private Ryan. ArcGIS Earth enables the administrators to kind of connect to your organizations. So you can pull in content from your portal, from ArcGIS Online, you can customize a banner, and you can also establish connections to this rich content information. This KML that I just added depicts the 8 causeways and the units that control each causeway to include the higher echelon. Looking at this data set, I noticed a couple of things. First, the labeling is really hard to see. And second, the 2nd Ranger Battalion, I'm actually missing the logo for that. So I can easily come into this, into my KML, and give it the correct logo for that 2nd Ranger Battalion. I can also adjust the labeling right here to let me to make it to where it's easier to see. With ArcGIS Earth 1.10, you can edit your KMLs and update the symbology, labels, and the key information. And doesn't this look a lot better? So ArcGIS Earth also allows us to error handling. You saw previously that I had a file that was having problems. So I can easily try to download this file here and notice, hey, this one's having problems as well. On line 23, position 6, something's wrong. So I can open up my KML in a text editor and see that at line 3, position 6, I'm missing something. And I realize, hey, I'm actually missing that folder. So I can save this file, minimize it, and drag it back in, and voila, everything comes in seamlessly. So now I have all of the key locations associated with the Omaha Beach fortifications. We can continue to understand these events by adding the landing ways for the 116th Regiment. So here I can come in and drag a shapefile into my ArcGIS Pro. Now, one thing with looking at the shapefile is that these icons don't really give it the due justice that it needs. So I can easily come into here and adjust the symbology. Because these are military symbols, I can use military symbology to have the key elements and information. And at the same time, I can also look at the properties associated with each one of these to see where that actually resides. So by looking at the symbology, I can use a dictionary renderer to look at my key elements and information. So here we're going to point it to that key file and have everything that we need directly into it. Now, one thing I'll note as well is that with these dictionary renderers, you can actually pull in the key content information to give you exactly what you need. So one thing as well is that as we're working with our data and our information, we can also pull in and look at what the perspective would have been for elements such as a B-17. So I can easily come into here and add some key elements, whether it's 3D features and a key bookmark of looking at what those B-17s would have seen when they came into the beachhead. So here we have our fortifications, our B-17s, and then also the landing craft vehicle personnel locations. So I can zoom into a key location here and see what the perspective would have been for those landing craft vehicle personnel as they were coming onto the beach. One thing I'll show you as well is that we can also add some additional elements. So I can add a screen overlay. The screen overlay here will look at the perspective of all those landing craft vehicle personnel. And essentially what this does is it takes an image and burns it onto the ArcGIS Earth screen. Now, if you're working with maybe a legend or something else along those lines, this is a great way to take advantage of using that as well. So let's continue on and kind of look around and see what these obstacles look like. So just so you know, this is looking at over 3,600 3D features as we're kind of looking around Omaha Beach. And also taking into account the perspective of what the MG42 nest would look like. But in looking at all my elements and key things on the beach, I noticed one other thing. I'm missing a location here for an an 88mm gun here along the beach. So I can easily come into ArcGIS Earth and draw what that bunker would have looked like. We can give it an absolute height, 5 meters, and then extrude this to the ground. With working with this data layer, I can also make adjustments on the fly. So I know that these things are tilted. I can drag and drop a key point directly into here to look at the line of sight. So by dragging and dropping that key point right here, I can look at what the view shed would actually look like. So here we are. We're going to drag and drop a point. And look at what that perspective would have been from this location. I can adjust the height for this, the heading, and the angles. So now if we want to see what's visible from that key location, I can easily see what would have been visible from that bunker's nest right there. So again, this is doing interactive, on the fly view sheds from a particular location. The final thing I'll show you is looking at not only the positions here, but I'll also show you one additional thing. If we want to also look at what the elevation profile would have been, we can look at what the perspective would have been for these individuals as they were coming onto the beach. So I can simply drop a point here at this landing craft vehicle personnel and drag it up to that MG42 nest. Now I can visually see along that route what the elevation change would have been for those individuals that were coming onto the beach. Or vice versa, which didn't happen, looking at that perspective from those at the MG42 nest coming down to the beach. The final thing I'll show you is that we can also do interactive on-the-fly view sheds by playing it through an animation. So with this example here, I've customized the icon that we're using to fly through. So this is a DAE model that we're going to use to fly through the beachhead to kind of see the perspective of what would have been visible at that beach. So here I'm going to start this animation, and we're going to zoom in to see what that perspective would have been for that Spitfire as it's flying along the beachhead. Noticing that there's a number of different line of sight, key locations, other types of things that we can kind of view and adjust on the fly. So ArcGIS Earth provides a lightweight 2D and 3D mapping experience. You can now edit your KMLs, you can use data dictionaries, you can edit the geometries of your layer drawings, and through Earth, users can explore, recreate, and provide a common operating picture that others can consume. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation and demonstration, and please let me know if there's any questions or comments that you have. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Now we're just gonna wrap up here a little bit in terms of looking at the roadmap. And this year we released 110, which is some of the great stuff that David just showed you. And if there were any comparison with KML work for replacement, this would be it. So we're basically there. We provided KML editing, some of what you saw there at the 110 release, and we gave users the power and flexibility to manipulate KML in its entirety. You saw editing of feature geometry, network links, screen and ground overlay, graphic styles, file structure, even error handling, and saving out the files, which David has shown you. We had disconnected workflows, which makes it easier for ArcGIS Earth to be taken into the field. Users can take their 3D scenes and their content offline in a single file called a mobile scene package. For those familiar with the portable globe experience, this is a new data type, and it allows for basically a clip, zip, and ship type workflow. In terms of authentication requirements, Earth is handling protected services at all network levels for our customers behind the firewall, including product updates specifically for secure customers. In the near term, let's say 20 to 21, our next release will be a major code change. We've been moving from what Earth is currently built on, which is Microsoft .NET Framework 4.6.1, and it's basically an older technology, and we're moving to .NET Core, so the next release will be much, much better and much more stable code. But at the same time, we're adding some capabilities, so we're going to continue to expand data types, so WFS will be added. We're improving the sharing capability and adding underground, and an R&D effort is going to be standard for our developer story. So 2021 and beyond, we could look at introducing and expanding on that developer story, providing more research for a potential web experience, adding interactive tools such as threat domes, or even accessing extensions such as LocateXT, which handles unstructured data inside of ArcGIS Earth. We'll be releasing the mobile versions more rapidly than we would be with the desktop. Right now, we're releasing at least 2 per year for desktop, but we'll be doing at least 4 per year for the mobile. And so you could look out for more of those. And for more information, of course, these are some of the resources you can go to. There's a lot of help documentation. Like I said, the help is in a PDF that is installed in Earth. And sorry about that. There's a Twitter page, a lot of videos online, and a lot of different resources that we have available. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to a moderator and take any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Great, thanks guys. So we have some questions lined up. The first one is, are these 3D models created for this presentation?
Yeah, so some of the models were available and found online. And so thanks to business partners and free 3D warehouses and other groups like that, we were able to pull a bunch of these models. Some of the models that we used for this demonstration were kind of tailored exactly to what we were needing for it. But yeah, if someone has questions related to the models, I'm happy to pass those along.
And absolutely, if you can create your own models with DAE, we have the data types type of models that you could bring in. You can absolutely go use Sketchfab or whatever 3D modeling software you have to create those.
Great. Next question is it possible to do a 3D tour underwater with bathymetry?
Well, with the next release, we will have underground capability. I will have to test that out to let you know. But yeah, it seems possible.
That was kind of the plug-in for showing the Titanic, is that right now at 1.10.1, we're having a look at it on the surface, but the plan at 1.11 is for us to test out and see if we can actually do the bathymetric style of use.
Great. Next question. Can the generated viewshed be exported and saved?
Right now, we do not have an export for the analytical tools, but we do have an ask for it, so it is in the backlog.
Great. Next question. Is the built-in military symbology MIL STD 2525D compliant?
Yes. So the MIL 2525 is using essentially what's called a style file. So you point it to whichever MIL spec that you're looking for, and you can pull in whether, like the example I was going to show you, which I can show you right now, is looking at that MIL spec in 2525 BC, so which was what was used way back when. but let me, I'll show just a quick image of that. So here's what the spec would have looked like with a military 2525 BC. But I can essentially, from the symbology here, point to whichever mil spec I'm looking at. So if I had my own, I could pull in that style file, and then I can point it to whichever one I need.
Great. Next question, does ArcGIS Earth support full motion video?
No, not at this time. We do have other apps such as Excalibur and other software that does full motion video, but we did not have a specific ask for full motion video at this time.
Just to follow up with that, if this person does have that specific ask, how would they provide that to Esri?
Email me directly.
Great. And then last question, how is ArcGIS Earth functionality different than Scene?
So Scene Viewer is a web-based and ArcGIS Earth is desktop. One good thing about Earth is because, and Esri on the whole, is because we're on the same platform. ArcGIS Earth can read web scenes and web maps for a desktop application, which I thought was pretty cool.
Great. And we actually had one more question come in. Can you model satellite orbits?
We cannot at this time. We are working to move outside of that orbit. There is some, you can show some of the orbit out there, but I still have the team working on building that out.
Great. Well, that's it for the questions. So just to wrap things up, this session was recorded and we'll be sending it out once it's available, as well as the slides that Darren showed. So thank you everyone for attending and sharing your time with us. Have a good day.